Legend of Heroes 4, A Tear of Vermillion is the second game of the Gagharv Trilogy, but it is the first game in the series' chronology, with Legend of Heroes 5 taking place 7 years after the events of this game, and Legend of Heroes 3 over 50 years after that. The Gagharv Trilogy never saw official PC release in the West, its only existing traces being PSP versions of these games, boasting severely changed and, in my humble opinion, massively downgraded systems, as well as a somewhat shoddy localization effort. The Gagharv PSP games were not well received in the West, and remains today as just some obscure Falcom titles of old. Personally, I've always been a bit sad that this has been the case. A Tear of Vermillion first released in 1996, receiving its PC port in 2000. But its graphics, story, and gameplay were so far ahead of its time that I have a good chance of convincing you that this 2D JRPG was released in the year 2020. I will wager a large number of Eastern Kiseki boomers grew up with earlier Falcom titles like Ys 1 and 2, Zwei, and notably the Gagharv Trilogy in particular. The fact that the Gagharv Trilogy is the least known of the three in the West is a very unfortunate reality. In fact, if you Google The Legend of Heroes 4 on Google or look it up on YouTube, you'll be wading through a sea of content on Cold Steel 4 instead, despite Cold Steel technically being the 8th Legend of Heroes entry. Today, I shall endeavor to bring more attention to this wonderful title of old. This video is a lore summary for Legend of Heroes 4, A Tear of Vermillion. Before I begin, I would like to lay out some disclaimers, so please bear with me. If you wish to simply skip to the main content of the video, please go to the time indicated on screen now. To start, this video format closely resembles Lady Virgilia's Trails lore summary series, and I would like to first and foremost give her the credit for inspiring me to produce this content myself, as well as extend my gratitude to her for her well wishes on my project. She is much better at content creation than I will ever be, and I hope the end product can match up to the caliber of content she produces. Secondly, just as Kiseki, or the Trail series, is a masterclass for its incredibly intricate and detailed world building, ambient interactions, and character writing. I mean seriously, how many of you guys know about this NPC from Trails in the Sky FC's Chapter 1, who just casually reveals the fact that Hamel was an inside job? The Gagharv Trilogy is similarly impressive in terms of weaponizing its ambient dialogue to give the world more flavor, and in some ways I will argue it does it better than Trails at some points. While it's impractical for me to go over every minute interaction with minor NPCs in this game, especially in the format of a lore summary, there are certain optional NPC interactions which lend additional intrigue to the general plot of the game. For interactions like these and many other bonus dialogues, I'll be incorporating them into the lore summary, usually without explicitly stating that these are not mandatory story beats, to provide a more complete story experience. Finally, the footage you have seen and will be seeing in the background throughout this entire production is from the official Chinese PC localization of the game. Although I am fluent in Chinese Mandarin and can read the game script, my videos are produced for the Western English-speaking audience, so a fair share of my viewers will not be able to read the dialogues. With that in mind, this video will have significantly longer runtimes to normal lore summaries, as every character interaction will be highlighted at length. I hope in this way I can introduce each character along with their personalities in a way that brings them to life as much as possible. The game opens with a brief introduction of the setting. The story of Legend of Heroes 4 takes place on a continent called Alfilden, west of the Great Divide known as the Gagharv. In the continent of Alfilden, there exists the god of light, Bardus, as well as the god of darkness, Octum. Following an ideological war between light and darkness, both fell into eternal slumber, leaving their human followers fractured, forming respective religions worshipping each of their sleeping gods. We're introduced to Cathedral, a large site of worship for the Church of Bardus located in the western half of Alfilden, and meet the protagonist of the game, Avin, along with his younger sister Emil. Avin and Emil were orphans adopted by Cathedral's priests and were raised under the people of the Church of Bardus. Avin is seen sneaking around the priests and guards in Cathedral, making his way to Emil with a bottle of milk he smuggled from the storehouse. Emil had found and adopted a stray cat behind their instructors' backs, and the siblings had been secretly taking care of it as they were afraid their instructors wouldn't allow them to keep it. Emil and Avin have a fantastic sibling relationship as they're the only ones supporting each other after the death of their parents. The ruse is quickly up as their instructor, Sister Olesia, finds them feeding the kitten. Before they could explain themselves, the situation quickly turns sour as panicking Cathedral guards enter, requesting Avin, Emil, and Olesia evacuate before being killed by a group of assailants. Olesia identifies the leader of the group as Bellius, a former bishop and turncoat to the Church of Bardus. She tries to warn Bellius against the use of force in Cathedral lest they suffer Bardus' wrath. Bellius scoffs at Olesia's warning, instead demanding her to hand over the person known as Thurga's daughter. Archbishop Asperius enters and intervenes. Seeing Bellius now a servant of Octum, he pieces together Bellius' involvement in an event referred to as the Tragedy of Canafia. Asperius instructs Olesia to take the children and run, while attempting to hold Bellius at bay. Bellius' power quickly proves to be too much for Asperius, as even his strongest attack could not even phase Bellius. Knowing he is outmatched, Asperius questions Bellius, calling him a once faithful bishop to Bardus, and asks what could have made him turn to the evil god. In response, Bellius laughs at the idea, declaring Bardus as the actual false god and that Octum is the god of truth and benevolence before unleashing a fatal attack on Asperius. Asperius perishes, lamenting Bellius' fall from grace in his final moments. Standing in the now ruined cathedral, Bellius declares himself the new archbishop and sends his underlings to kill everything in sight. Avin, Emil, and Olesia were not able to make it far before Bellius caught up to them. Arrogantly informing them of Asperius' death, Bellius advances upon them only to have the Sage of Strength, Gawain, intervene. Much like Asperius, Gawain tells Olesia to retreat, intending to hold off Bellius for as long as possible. Bellius taunts Gawain, wondering why the Sage would step in, as the three sages operate separately from the Church of Bardus. Gawain simply replies that he will not stand idly by as Bellius threatens the lives of innocents as the two prepare to clash. Olesia and the children make it to a church soldier and are taken away for evacuation. However, before the escape carriage can take off, a stray attack from Bellius hits the vehicle, disturbing the cart enough and frightening the stray kitten Emil adopted, causing it to jump off the carriage. Avin volunteers to retrieve the cat and jumps off, only to be cut off by another barrage of magic. As the incoming assault intensifies, Gawain makes his way to Avin to shield him, ordering the soldier to split up. He takes Avin with him to safety elsewhere, separating him from Emil. Three days after Cathedral's fall, Avin is still reliving the events of that day in his nightmares. Gawain has since taken Avin to this cottage owned by another fellow sage, Sage Lemurus, for Avin's protection. Lemurus had agreed to shelter the boy, taking in Avin as his adoptive grandson, while Gawain had already left. Waking Avin up from his dream, Lemurus tells him to clean up and prepare for breakfast. Avin eats up and thanks his new grandfather for the delicious meal. Lemurus tells Avin that the ingredients came from the neighboring Urt village, and that the villagers supply Lemurus with fresh groceries once a week. Lemurus asks Avin to do him a favor. He had written a letter of appreciation to Urt village's elder, but he is too busy to deliver the letter in person and asks Avin to do it for him. Lemurus also tells Avin to socialize with the villagers afterwards, as Urt village is filled with very kind-hearted and wonderful people. Avin accepts the request, taking the letter from Lemurus, and heads off to Urt. Arriving in Urt village, Avin meets Elder Rowan and hands him the letter from Sage Lemurus while introducing himself. Elder Rowan welcomes Avin warmly, noting that Avin used to live in Cathedral before being shipped here. Rowan offers his condolences to Avin for enduring such a traumatic event at a young age, and warmly offers him to come by Urt and play whenever. Their conversation is interrupted when Elder Rowan notices another boy from the village eavesdropping on their conversation and calls out to him, causing him to run off. Rowan introduces the peeping boy as Mile. Elder Rowan says he needs to write a reply letter to Lemurus and asks Avin to hang out in the village in the meantime. Avin runs into Mile in the village, who identifies him as the new boy who started living with Grandpa Lemurus. Filled with energy, Mile cheers at the prospect of meeting Avin and forces him to play a game of hide and seek. The game eventually caused Mile to make a wild scene in Elder Rowan's house before running off, much to Avin's annoyance. Elder Rowan apologizes on Mile's behalf, telling Avin that Mile is usually a very calm and reserved boy, but since there's nobody in Ord Village around his age, he doesn't quite know how to play with other kids. Rowan hands his reply letter to Avin and sends him off on his way. On Avin's way back, Mile comes out of hiding to talk to him. Mile apologizes to Avin for his hyperactivity earlier and asks him if they can still be friends and maybe play some of Avin's favorite games next time. Avin, still distraught over being separated from Emil, says as much and tells Mile that he's not in the mood to do anything. Mile continuously probes Avin about this Emil person, which ends up annoying him and causing Avin to snap back at Mile in anger, demanding Mile to leave him alone. Mile is taken aback by Avin's anger and tries to make up for it by telling him about the Harvest Festival in a few days' time. It's an annual tradition in Ord Village where the villagers give thanks to the guardian fairy of Earth, Nephthys, for a bountiful harvest. The festival also has an event where Nephthys may grant each villager a wish. Apologizing again for taking Avin's time, Mile runs back to the village, leaving Avin to silently ponder about the idea of wishing to a deity. Meanwhile, Lemurus is lamenting to himself about the fall of Cathedral, as well as pondering what Belius' next moves must be after seizing control of the religious capital to Bardus. He predicts Belius' next move to be breaking the seal beneath Cathedral, as well as proceeding in his plans to capture Durga's daughter. Lemurus wonders to himself whether or not the crisis will be resolved in his lifetime. His thoughts are cut short by Avin's return, who hands him the reply before wandering off. Lemurus asks Avin about the impressions of the people in Ord Village, in particular about Mile, who actually does come to study with Lemurus once a week. Avin simply remarks that he doesn't think they'll get along, and leaves. Days later, Ord Village's Harvest Festival has begun. Mile comes to the cottage looking for Avin since Avin had completely ghosted Mile's invitation to the festival. In an attempt to boost Avin's spirits, Lemurus tells Mile a white lie saying that Avin really wants to befriend Mile, but he's just shutting himself off because he's still grieving over being separated from his sister. Mile eagerly volunteers to help his newfound friend out of the dumps. He tracks down Avin sulking at the back of the cottage and proceeds to more or less drag him off to Ord Village. On the way to Ord, Mile tries to cheer Avin up as Avin slowly opens up to Mile, explaining that Emil is his only family and he blames himself for being too weak to protect her when it mattered. Avin resigns to the thought that he may not see Emil ever again. In response, Mile tells Avin to wish to be reunited with Emil during the festival, insisting that Nephthys will make his dream come true. Miles' earnestness seems to cheer Avin up, making Avin warm up to him slightly. The pair arrive just in time to join the rest of the villagers as Elder Rowan declares the start of the Harvest Festival. After a quick opening event where the villagers scatter to find their wishing cards, the event begins proper. The villagers gather on the bridge in the village, overlooking a water-filled cavern. Mile explains to Avin the village tradition is to shout out a wish and throw the wishing card into the cave, where Nephthys is said to slumber at the other end. If the card flows all the way to the end, it means Nephthys has received the wish and it will therefore be granted. The two kids watch on, with Avin being surprised that even adults are really getting into the tradition, cheering as their wish is seemingly granted by the sleeping spirit. After witnessing all of the villagers' wishing cards surviving the voyage into the cavern depth, Mile volunteers Avin to go next. Avin stands on the bridge and decides to give this tradition a try. He tosses his card into the water while wishing to see Emil again. As the rest of the villagers cheer him on, Avin's wishing card unfortunately sinks only seconds after being thrown. The crowd lets out a gasp of disappointment while Avin stands in resignation, taking this as a sign that he will be destined to never be reunited with his sister again. Suddenly, Mile shouts out from the crowd telling Avin to not give up hope. Holding his card, Mile runs onto the bridge and tosses it into the cavern, and to Avin's shock, Mile wishes for Avin to one day be reunited with Emil. The villagers look on as Mile's cart successfully drifts to the end of the cavern, letting his wish be heard by Nephthys. As Mile and the rest of the villagers cheer for Avin, Avin stands in surprise that Mile will give up his own wish for his sake. However, Mile tells him that this is okay, because during the last festival, Mile had wished for a best friend. Avin is touched by Mile's earnestness and selflessness, and from that day onward, the two became inseparable friends as they spent the next 8 years in Lemurus' tutelage. As their bonds deepened, their friendship became ironclad to the point where they treat each other like brothers. Time flew by as the years passed, and in Gagharv calendar year 936, Avin welcomed his 17th spring. At the start of Act 1, Avin is shown standing beside an ailing sage Lemurus now on his deathbed. The passage of time had worn the old sage down, and his time had sadly come. Though Avin encourages Lemurus to rest up and recover with some medication, Lemurus simply tells him that death due to old age has no cure. Lemurus apologizes to Avin for keeping him sheltered from Emil all this time, and informs Avin that unfortunately, he doesn't know where she is. He only knows that for some reason, the cultists that besieged Cathedral were looking for her specifically, and him keeping Avin away was to protect Avin from danger. Despite this, Avin expresses his desire to find Emil no matter what, and though Lemurus gives Avin his dying blessing, he reminds Avin that to protect those precious to him, he needs to strengthen himself with the virtues of strength, wisdom, and compassion. Lemurus tells Avin of the 3 sages, who each represent one of these virtues. Lemurus is the sage of compassion, while Gawain is the sage of strength. With both of them having raised Avin at some point in his life, Lemurus tells him to seek out the last sage, the sage of wisdom, Dinarken, living as a hermit sheltering within secluded woods to the northeast of the capital city. He then instructs Avin to open the chest beside his bed, revealing a single strangely shaped accessory. Avin asks what it is. Lemurus tells him that it is one of the sacred treasures named the Cabeza, also known as the head of Bardus. He asks Avin to bring it to Sage Dinarken. With his last breath, Lemurus tells Avin that he is proud of him before peacefully passing away. A few days pass. Avin lays Lemurus to rest in a small tombstone in the back of the cottage. Swearing by Lemurus' grave that he will reunite with Emil no matter what, Avin promises that he will become the man worthy of Lemurus' pride. He sets off for Word Village, intending to bid everyone farewell before setting off on the journey of his lifetime, starting with his good friend Mile. He finds Mile guarding the Word Village exit. Monster outbreaks have become more violent lately, necessitating Word villagers to take turns as lookouts. The two friends chat briefly about the days following Lemurus' passing, until Avin brings up his intention to travel. Not just to fulfill Lemurus' final wish to deliver the Cabeza to Sage Dinarken, but also set out on his own journey in life. Mile takes all of 2 seconds to figure out Avin's intentions of trying to find Emil, presumably because Avin wouldn't stop talking about her for 8 years, and volunteers to accompany him. Avin is initially shocked that Mile is so eager to travel with him, and tries to talk him out of it, but Mile is able to quickly convince his friend otherwise, stating that he too wants to see the world with his own eyes, aside from helping Avin. The pair agree to split off after Miles' shift, with Avin talking to Elder Roan about their plans, and Mile heading back home to convince his own parents to let them leave the village. Avin heads to Elder Roan, intending to tell him about his plans to depart, only to find out Roan has been making plans for Avin to move into Ward Village permanently after Lemurus' passing. Avin hurriedly thanks Elder Roan as well as the people of Ward Village for their hospitality, but quickly refuses the offer to move in, announcing his plans to leave the village instead. Roan is stunned by Avin's words. He tells Avin that the people of Ward Village sees him as one of their own, so he will always have friends and family that care about him. He cautions Avin against his plans, telling him about the worsening cases of monster outbreaks outside of the village. There has even been a large monster sighting between the capital and Ward Village, with an outstanding bounty for its head. Even if Avin's journey starts with fulfilling the last wish of Sage Lemurus, Rowan refuses to let Avin leave until at least the monster has been exterminated. Avin then heads to Mile's home only to find Mile's parents echoing Elder Rowan's sentiments. Seeing their reservations about having Mile leave the village, Avin once again brings up the point of traveling alone, only to have it shot down by Mile's parents immediately. Both of them claiming that they see Avin as their own son as well, now that he's been so close with them for the past 8 years. Mile's mother ends the conversation there, sending the two boys on a chore to fetch some fresh veggies from the village farm for dinner. The two head on out to the farm, lamenting about their current situation. They discuss each other's strength in combat, having learned different schools of magic under Sage Lemurus. Avin learned destructive black magic, while Mile learned restorative white magic. Avin is also proficient with close-quarters swordplay, while Mile supports at range with a boomerang. They decide that they can be a really formidable duo. In fact, way stronger than those adventurers in the kingdom, probably. Heck, they could probably take down that large monster by themselves. And in fact, what if they did? If they proved themselves like that, then surely they'd be allowed to leave the village. So Mile hatches up a plan to sneak out. They dutifully pick some fresh vegetables and delivers it as promised, and then immediately seek out the villager currently on lookout, Famu. Mile tells a hungry Famu that dinner is served at his house and in fact he's invited. And there's no need to worry, he and Avin will gladly sit here and guard the entrance in his stead. Famu happily obliges and gleefully leaves his post. Avin expresses some concern about leaving the village unguarded like this, but Mile reassures him that it'll be fine. Smaller monsters wouldn't dare wander into the village, while the bigger threat is exactly what they're after. They slip out of the village undetected and onto the roads looking for their target. Soon into their travels along the road, they found a young man under attack by a ferocious monster. The young man, seemingly at the end of his wits, pulls out a spellbook to look for some type of magic to defeat the monster, only for Avin to approach him and tell him that he is, in fact, holding the spellbook upside down. This causes the man to snap out of his battle trance. Stunned by Avin and Mile's presence, he introduces himself as Marty, an adventurer working for the kingdom's adventurer guild, dispatched here to defeat the wanted monster, a large carapace creature called the Hamakages. Marty then rallies himself and charges back into the fray, only to be swiftly overpowered again by the monster. Avin and Mile quickly run to his rescue. The three of them then work together to take down the Hamakages after a long and grueling battle. After the battle, Marty thanks Avin and Mile for their help. Marty properly introduces himself as a student, studying for the upcoming minister's exam while working as an adventurer part-time to make ends meet. Mile expresses a small degree of familiarity with the minister's exam, stating it is known to be a very difficult test. Marty explains that the exam was created to serve as a system of meritocracy. Anyone who passes this exam will earn an official position within the kingdom of Alfilden, regardless of their social standing. The entire ordeal was exceptionally tough on the wallet, however, so Marty had to balance adventuring contracts with studying constantly. After hearing Avin and Mile's story though, despite being broke, Marty still shared half of the contracted payment with the duo, as well as giving them a claw from the Hamakages' body, allowing them to present it as proof of their victory to the villagers. They wish each other well and part ways for now. Avin and Mile conclude that Marty seems like a friendly person, if not a little bit hapless. Though upon returning to Ward Village, the jig is immediately up, as Avin and Mile are confronted by everybody waiting for them at the gate. Rowan is furious at the boys for disobeying orders and sneaking out of the village. Mile quickly steps forward to apologize, explaining their intentions and presenting the Hamakages' claw as proof of what they had done, and asks once again for their permission to allow them to travel. Though the villagers are impressed with their feat and commend them for their efforts, Rowan is still disappointed in their impulsive decision to sneak away, and once again denies them. Avin is infuriated by Rowan's words and angrily snaps back. Mile tries to defuse the situation to no avail. Thankfully, before things could escalate out of control, Mile's father steps in and quiets everybody down. He asks Avin and Mile if they truly wish to travel the world. Avin and Mile look at each other briefly and both gave their firm answer of yes. Seeing both of their sincerity, Miles' father reminisces about the time when he was around their age and went on a similar journey throughout the continent. Though it was filled with moments of hardship, it was a very valuable experience. And in fact, that was how he first met Miles' mother. Believing their resolve to be genuine, Miles' father also appeals to Rowan for his permission, and finally, the three of them combined earns the Elder's approval. Rowan requests Avin and Mile stay in the village for one last night, and the entire village will see them off on their adventures for the following day. As the next day rolls around, Miles' parents see Avin and Mile off. Miles' father gives Mile a keepsake, a bell chime with a ring so clear it seems to purify the soul. Miles' father calls it his guardian bell, and hopes it will keep them safe on their journey. They head for the village exit, where Elder Rowan offers a prayer to the guardian spirits on their behalf. Avin and Mile bid the villagers farewell, not knowing when they will return, and the duo was finally able to leave Word Village with everyone's blessings. Returning on the path back to their next destination, they quickly arrive in Philden, the kingdom capital of the continent. As grand as the capital city is, however, they don't plan to stay here for long, as they need to take the northeast exit out of the capital and head towards Sage Dinarken's abode. But when they arrived at the exit, they were surprised to find Marty there, greeting the guard as he was leaving the same way, stating he had a job to do in Tibri village. The guard sympathizes with Marty briefly over his massive workload before granting him passage. Avin and Mile try to follow him, but the guard quickly stops them, informing them that a dangerous bandit group known as the Shamshir Gang has been actively operating northeast of the capital. Passage is prohibited to unauthorized personnel as a result. When Avin and Mile asks about why Marty was allowed, the guard tells them that Marty is working for the Adventurers Guild, which gives him free passage into otherwise dangerous locations for work purposes. Recognizing the situation and realizing being stopped by guards into dangerous places could be a recurring issue going forward, Avin and Mile discuss their current predicament. They decide it would be best for them to apply to be adventurers as well. Putting the plan to meet Sage Dinarken on hold for now, the duo heads to the Adventurers Guild office and decides to apply. After getting past the initial surprise that two very young adults have applied, the Guildmaster accepts their applications and issues the entrance test, handing Avin and Mile a series of 3 requests submitted to the guild, and evaluating their overall performance. The first of the 3 requests is to gather donations for the Church of Bardus, so the two were sent off to fetch a donation box from the bishop in the city. Avin and Mile find the local bishop, Bishop Jiraiya, and requests a donation box from him. The bishop seems to be extremely dismissive of the two, giving them the cold shoulder and shooing them away as soon as possible with an empty box in their hands. Avin leaves and almost immediately expresses his dislike for the bishop. Having been raised by the devout people of Cathedral, Avin finds it despicable that a man of the cloth would address the common people in such a cold and dismissive manner. Regardless, they had a job to do, so they set off to collect donations from the residents in the capital. While most were happy to give money in the name of Bardus, they nonetheless encountered some interesting people around the capital, including a young girl playing with her teddy bear on the bridge, a couple far too busy arguing with each other to give money, and the general store clerk who is very aggressively hitting on Mile on account of him being a handsome man, but Avin clearly didn't quite make her cut. Eventually, their donation drive takes them to a curious old man. The old man introduces himself as Karamuro Karamis, a world-famous author renowned for his latest best-selling fiction series, Swordswoman Safi. Though after his latest success, he's been struggling to find inspiration for his next novel series, and is currently hiding from his editor in this warehouse. Avin and Mile introduce themselves as aspiring adventurers currently taking the guild exams, and this seems to trigger a surge of inspiration from Karamis. Examining the duo in more detail, Karamis suddenly comes to a great epiphany, and much to Avin and Mile's surprise, he declares his next novel series will have them as his protagonists. He tells Avin and Mile that he'll likely be constantly on the run to evade his editor hounding him for the next draft, so he encourages them to find him wherever they can to tell him about their adventures so he can put them to paper. With that, Karamas drops off his donation and runs off. Soon after, they run into the fabled editor, Jimenez, on the hunt for the great author. Stressing to himself about the upcoming deadline for Karamas' draft, after Avin and Mile introduce themselves and explain their encounter with the great author just moments ago, Jimenez thanks them and runs off, promising to meet again later down the road. Seeing him run off, Avin and Mile remark about this amusing author-editor duel and wonder if they'll really meet again. The rest of the donation drive proceeds without issue, and Avin and Mile find themselves circling back to the arguing couple, only to find Martin out there providing his best attempts at marriage counseling, though that falls flat and Marty finds himself thrown out of their house the moment he tries to say something. Avin, Mile, and Marty quickly catch up with each other. Marty, having just returned from making a delivery to Tibri village, has quickly accepted his next job, which is to quell the arguing couple as the neighbors have sent noise complaints. Marty promises to treat the duo to dinner sometime and part ways for now, throwing himself back into yet another battlefield. Avin and Mile return the donation box to the bishop, overhearing his plans to distribute the donation money to the various barons and viscounts in the capital. Trying to engage him in conversation, the bishop is once again extremely dismissive of them and simply tells them to stash the box away and get out. Finally taking exception to the bishop's behavior, Avin stands his ground and firmly calls him out, declaring that a man of the cloth shouldn't be so dismissive and rude to the people. This immediately starts an argument between Avin and the immoral bishop, which Miles steps in to defuse, pulling a flailing and screaming Avin out of the bishop's office while apologizing profusely. Once outside, Mile quickly calms Avin down, reminding him that their goal is to become certified adventurers so they can travel about freely and find a meal, and the best way to do so will sometimes involve gritting their teeth and tolerating bad people. Though Mile does remark that he also found the bishop's conduct distasteful and found Avin yelling at him a very cathartic experience. Regardless, the two report back to the Adventurers Guild with a job well done, passing their first test with flying colors. As the guildmaster prepares their second test, they're swiftly interrupted as the girl they found playing on the bridge earlier came running into the guild, crying her eyes out. The girl's mother explains that the child's name is Fururu, and her favorite teddy bear, Ban, was blown off the bridge by the wind and got carried off in the waterways into the sewers. Mile appeals to the guildmaster, requesting their second test be changed to recovering this girl's teddy bear. The guildmaster agrees to the change and sends the two off into the city sewers. They make short work of the monsters infesting the place, but stop halfway after hearing distant voices, seemingly from above. Avin and Miles start looking around, trying to pin down the source of the voice, while a blue-haired girl scurried into the sewers from the left, running her own way before crashing into Avin. Flustered, the girl immediately accuses Avin of being a low-born pervert. Avin's own fiery temper fires right back, quickly escalating the situation into an argument. Mile eventually gets the both of them to settle down, giving their names to the girl and asking for hers in return. The girl agrees reluctantly, introducing herself as Muse. But the conversation was cut short by the distant voices coming up again. Muse panics, hearing the voice of her pursuers, hurriedly excusing herself before running off. Though interestingly, when Avin and Mile followed the path Muse came from, all they found was an ornate locked door. Not thinking too much of it for now, the two press onward and eventually recover Ban. With their second task complete, they head back to the Adventurers Guild and return Ban to his rightful owner. With another job well done, their test moves on to its third and final task. The Guildmaster, however, explains that their final test is the most complex and difficult, and will require a certified adventurer to accompany them, both as protection as well as an on-field evaluator. Avin and Mile instantly think of Marty, who is perfect for the role. With the Guildmaster's permission, they go and find him, still in the midst of an extremely unsuccessful mediation session. As they witness poor Marty gets thrown out of the arguing couple's house yet again, they offer to help him out so that he can in turn serve as their evaluator. Marty tells them that the argument started because the husband forgot the wife's birthday and eventually cascaded into a full-on domestic war. Mile quickly hatches a solution and excuses himself, quickly coming back with a bouquet in his hand. Posing as a delivery boy from the Felden General Store, Mile apologizes for the late arrival of the flowers, as blooming season supposedly came late this year. This seems to do the trick, placating the wife as she now believes that her husband didn't forget her birthday after all, instantly resolving the argument. Mile quickly leaves the scene. Avin and Marty ask where the flowers were from, and Mile just says it was exceptionally easy to buy flowers, especially from a clerk who fancies him. Getting back on topic, Avin and Mile inform Marty of their situation, and Marty is more than happy to serve as their evaluator. The Guildmaster signs off on this, informing them that their third task is to clear out the monsters infesting the Felden gem mines. As the gem mines represent a significant source of revenue for the Crown, this is an exceptionally important task. With Marty in tow, Avin's party accepts their final test and proceeds towards the mine. When they arrived at the mines, they heard some voices deeper inside. Upon investigating the source, they found Muse of all people under attack by a group of bandits. Recognizing her from the sewers, Avin and crew quickly rush to her defense. They defeat the bandits, forcing them to retreat. Muse thanks the group for coming to her aid and properly introduces herself. She tells the group that the bandits they had just fought against were members of the Shamshir gang. She suspects them to be behind this monster attack incident in the mines as an attempt to damage the financial status of Felden Castle. Seeing Avin's party, she decides to recruit herself into the party for this mission. Avin and Marty have reservations about Muse's decision. Marty even states that the first principle of the Adventurers Guild is to ensure the safety of civilians and requests Muse evacuate from the scene, a suggestion that quickly earns him an intense scolding from her. Avin yields to Muse's stubbornness and takes her along. They quickly wrap up the request by clearing out the mines together. Afterwards, Avin questions who Muse really is and why she seems so intent on fighting against the Shamshir gang, a question she swiftly evades. They report back, having passed all 3 exams, and receive their formal certification as adventurers. With the way to Tibri now clear, they discuss their next steps. Muse tells the group that she also incidentally have affairs to do in Tibri, though still being very secretive on what said affairs are, and offers to tag along with the newly certified adventurers. Marty in turn offers his aid as well. The Shamshir gang are known to be operating in the Tzatziki cave near Tibri, and he wants to investigate the gang's current activities. With the party still together for a bit more, they once again make for the northeastern exit out of Felden. Avin and Mile attempt to pass through the guard again, this time with Marty as a witness to testify that yes, these guys did indeed go from civilians to adventurers in the span of maybe an hour or two. The guard is surprised by this, but nonetheless offers them clearance. Muse too was able to get past the guard on account of now having 3 adventurers as her bodyguards, though the guard ominously remarks that he thinks he has seen Muse from somewhere before. Now on the road to Tibri village, situated between the capital and Avin's destination, Sage Dinerkin's abode in the Prayer Woods. The party soon comes to a crossroad. Muse checks the road signs, indicating that Tibri village is to the north and the Shamshir gang-infested Tzatziki cave is to the east. Marty explains that the canyons leading to Tzatziki cave are currently being searched by the royal army for signs of the Shamshir gang, though Muse is entirely unconvinced and tells the party to stay alert as they enter Tibri. Muse offers her hypothesis. The royal army's lead on the Shamshir gang operating around the Tzatziki cave is most likely a false lead. She tells the party that the leader of the Shamshir gang, a woman known as Fatima, is an exceptionally sly individual, and given Musei's understanding of Fatima's character, she is not the type of person to just let her current whereabouts be known this easily. Hearing this, Marty believes that Musei is most likely correct, as it would explain how the Shamshir gang was somehow able to get into the gem mines while the Royal Army is scouring their supposed hideout. Their fears are validated almost immediately. Panicked Royal Army soldiers, which Musei immediately tries to avoid, runs in from the north, informing the adventurers that Tibri village had been occupied by the Shamshir gang and its residents taken hostage. With Musei's intuition proving correct, she tells Avin, Mile, and Marty to return to the capital, as the Royal Army will soon arrive, and she wishes to get onto the scene before that can happen. Avin and crew protest, as there's no way they can just stand by and do nothing. Musei relents and brings them along. They find a small detachment of Royal Army soldiers at the entrance of the village. Introducing themselves as certified adventurers, Avin and the party receive a situation update from the captain. All the residents in the village are being locked up in the village pub. A frontal assault is ill-advised, as the villagers could be jeopardized if rash actions were taken. Marty asks if the Shamshir gang has made any demands, and they have. Much to the party's surprise, the gang is not after any money, but instead wants a single book titled The Book of Life. Expressing unfamiliarity with this book, Marty suggests that they should return to the Royal Library in Philden. It is the largest repository of written works on the continent, and they must surely have the Book of Life somewhere. Avin asks the Royal Army to continue stalling the Shamshir gang while the team rushes back to the capital. Entering the Royal Library, Avin and Mile are stunned by its sheer size. Marty takes them to Professor Logos, the head librarian and a renowned scholar, asking him to help locate the Book of Life. Logos tells them that the Book of Life is actually an ancient magical tome written in old sacred text, said to hold the powers of the goddess Durga herself. Logos is shocked that a bandit group like the Shamshir gang would even know of this book's existence, but unfortunately, the book's current whereabouts are lost to time, and a spell tome of this caliber certainly cannot be found on the shelves of the Royal Library. With the situation as critical as it is, Miles suggests that though the Shamshir gang is after the Book of Life, it is unlikely that they would be able to read the ancient scripts. Perhaps if they produce a similarly titled book, preferably also written in an older dialect, they could use the fake book to buy some time and at least save the villagers. Logos agrees with the plan and looks around, quickly producing a fake, a comedy play written centuries ago by an ancient playwright, held together by old bindings which could pass as an ancient spellbook. The book is titled The Bond of Life. The crew takes the convincing fake and attempts to head back to Tibri, only to be stopped by the guard again. The guard tells them that General Diren of the Royal Army has intervened to resolve the situation in Tibri, and during this time, even adventurers are not permitted to enter the premises no matter what the circumstance. Avin and Mile are unable to sway the guard for passage, even with the Bond of Life in their hands. But Musei walks up, whispers something into the guard's ear, winks at him, and then the guard quickly just lets them through. Avin wonders what black magic she weaved this time, but as always, Musei evades the question. However, she wouldn't be able to keep her secret for too much longer. When they arrive back at Tibri, they met face to face with General Diren, who immediately identifies Musei and shockingly reveals her true identity. It turns out Musei is a fake name, an acronym, in fact, of her real name, Mildine Uriel Sylvania Esmelis, the first princess of Felden Castle. The crew is shocked to learn this, though Princess Mildine tells them that her identity really isn't a big deal and insists that Avin and crew still call her Musei. General Diren, however, doesn't find the situation humorous in the slightest. Turns out Musei had slipped out of Felden Castle without informing anyone, and the princess going missing has since turned the palace upside down. even though this clearly doesn't sound like her first offense. Avin and General Diren, both men of rather fiery tempers, get into a brief spat over the circumstances of how Musei came to be with his group. Musei breaks up the argument, reminding them that time is of the essence and asks General Diren to focus on the situation, in exchange for promising to cease her adventures outside the palace walls and return home once the situation is resolved. General Diren, a respected and honorable man in his own right, works with Avin's group and quickly formulate a joint operation between the Royal Army and the Adventurers Guild. Diren would take the bond of life and personally parley with Fatima, hopefully occupying the bulk of the Shamshir gang. Avin would take his group and infiltrate, rescuing the villagers being held captive in the village pub. Once all the hostages have been rescued, the heavily armored and therefore extremely noisy Royal Army will charge in to finish the job once the villagers are safe. Everyone agrees on the plan, though much to Diren's dismay, Musei insists on joining Avin's party to infiltrate behind enemy lines and would not be convinced otherwise.